What's up, A to Z Sports here live on a Friday, 1 week closer to the end of the regular season, and the Titans owner is under fire as a Titans columnist, Gentry Estries, just goes scorched earth on Amy Adams Strunk in the Tennessean yesterday. So we'll discuss what that was. We've got some of that. We'll read through it as it was behind a paywall, but shout out to Gentry Estries for a great column in the Tennessean yesterday. Going to have an interesting conversation about it. We'll talk about something that Buck has brought up as well about Amy Adams Strunk and her role in this 3-10 season, the first of Brian Callahan's tenure as the Titans head coach. Who is to blame, pointing fingers, voting off the island, who's got the power, all of the things that Gentry wrote about in his column, The Open Letter to Amy Adams Strunk. And then maybe we'll do little best bets for this Bengals game coming in. I've got what I said yesterday was my biggest good news to this point of the season to wrap up this show. And Sam, there's also a little battle on the hardwood between our two schools tomorrow as well. So going to be some good news. Get your good news ready for later in the show. Sam, welcome in. What's up? Let's get it going.
Yeah, I got a lot to talk about. Like you said in the chat, it might be a wild one because we're talking about, an owner under fire. Then we're maybe having it out between the two of us a little bit later on. So I'm excited. I think it's going to be an electric show here on a Friday. And so there's no better way for those of you in the chat who are tuning in to help get the word out than to share the show. That's what you got to do off the bat. Hit the share button in the bottom right corner if you're watching on Facebook. If you're watching on YouTube, take the YouTube link, send it to a friend, a group chat, let them know. Shots are about to be fired on A to Z Sports this Friday morning. So spread the word, leave a like on the show, and make sure you let everybody know that A to Z Sports is live here on a Friday.
Shots fired by who towards who?
Well, we'll see. Maybe by Gentry to Miss Amy, maybe by you to Miss Amy, maybe by me to Miss Amy, maybe by you to me, maybe by me to you. I like to throw shots at the chat. The chat likes to throw shots back. So there will be shots. The question is, what direction?
Yeah, and who's going to get some of the friendly fire or some of the shrapnel, too? All right, let's get it going officially. Welcome to the A to Z Sports, powered as always by the BetMGM app. I'm Austin Stanley. He's Sam Phelan, one of our Titan reporters for A to Z Sports.com. We are Nashville's on-demand sports talk network, going live weekday mornings at 8 Central Time on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitch. Links to the show segment by segment on our Twitter X timeline. Also hit us up on Instagram, TikTok, and Threads for more great Titans content. Getting our sponsors, they make it happen for us, and they help out all of you, like Wilson County Hyundai, WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Make them a part of your new car buying process, seen in Lebanon or online at WilsonCountyHyundai.com. The Bone and Joint Institute, boneandjointtn.org, the region's destination for comprehensive orthopedic and sports medicine care. Farm Bureau Health Plans. Get better with Farm Bureau Health Plans. You can do that by getting a quote using our link, fbhp.com/ATOZ. And TDOT, join the Tennessee Department of Transportation and their solution to end littering across our state by visiting nobodytrashestennessee.com. So there will be several things covered. This will be a bigger topic, not necessarily talking about the Bengals game, not talking about where the Titans are going to be drafting in this upcoming draft, not really talking about who is going to be doing the drafting. If it's GM Ran Carthon, president of football operations Chad Brinker, or head coach Brian Callahan, but Gentry Estes from the Tennessean, Titans and sports columnist from the Tennessean, the paper of record across the Middle Tennessee area and in Nashville, did an open letter to Amy Adams Strunk. Sam, I'm going to have you kick this thing off, but I'm going to read the headline from Gentry on the open letter, and it was behind a paywall, and Gentry told Buck that he could read it, so we're going to take that as well. But an open letter to Titans owner Amy Adams Strunk. Sam, I'll let you start this thing off.
Gentry comes in with the following. There's the offseason, preseason, regular season, and for many NFL franchises, the postseason. Not Amy Adams Strunk's Tennessee Titans anymore. This is your team's blaming season. Feels so excruciatingly familiar, doesn't it? Right back in the same place. Another year of sitting and awaiting your verdict as controlling owner without any idea who you'll hold accountable this time. Is it the players? Is it general manager Ran Carthon and front office colleague, boss, Chad Brinker? Is it their turn after it was John Robinson's in 2022? Or will it be the coaching, Brian Callahan, as was the case last year with Mike Vrabel? Will it be no one? Everyone? Then and now, those who've endured this team's prolonged misfortune all carry opinions on who should be hurled overboard. It's just that none of those opinions matter, only yours. That means by now, the blame is yours.
So that's how Gentry starts this off. And it continues. It gets pretty good as far as writing and theater goes. Gentry continues, "You promised Titans fans more than this, Miss Amy. Your fan base isn't just disappointed. It's dwindling. It's tuning out. It isn't showing up at games. It's tired of losing. It's tired of the losing and the lack of accountability for anyone other than the Titans coaches and players. 4 games left, and Callahan has already been asked by reporters about his job security. Not his call. It's your call. Unfortunately, as always, there's only public silence from the Titans owner about everything. No thoughts, no support, no criticism, no plan, no explanation, no visible leadership from this franchise other than Callahan. No real reason for Titans fans to feel anything other than disillusioned by an offseason's worth of effusive positivity that has proved fiction, not fact, calling into question the competency of the leadership involved." So we'll pause there, Sam, because I saw some comments immediately coming out from the chat that are on several sides of this. Jay saying Amy isn't doing anything wrong, and Buckeye DK saying, yeah, Amy is legit. So you've got those two that are pro Amy Adams Strunk. Then Jay follows up and says, this letter is garbage from Gentry Estes. And then the distinguished gentleman says that Gentry does not speak for the fans. What is your thought on the idea of the reporter doing the open letter? And look, it's very well written. There is a lot of quality, high level takes and shots towards the ownership of holding her accountable. But when a fan says the newspaper columnist doesn't speak for the fans, what do you think, Sam? Like, as part of the media contingent?
I think why? I don't think you have to agree with everything that Gentry maybe says in this letter, but I also think you're in denial and disillusioned if you are feeling any other type of way about the Titans right now. How, if you're a Tennessee Titans fan in 2024, after watching the continuous downward spiral that this organization has been in over the past few years and the continued toxic, maybe is too strong of a word, but behavior from the organization, decisions made by ownership that are in line with an unsuccessful organization. They are not, we talked yesterday on the show, Austin, about the importance of pairing things like a general manager, a head coach, and a quarterback, not continuously finding fall guys, having accountability and culture within your organization, which is something that the Titans were supposed to do. Mm-hmm. And they have really none of that. They don't seem to have any sort of direction. They don't seem to have any sort of hierarchy that is made clear to the public or to the media. They don't take a ton of accountability outside of the head coach, who seems to be answering for everybody else's errors and problems, as if the decisions are all made by him, when we all know that they are not. I don't know how you watch what happened at Nissan Stadium on Sunday, and in early December of an NFL season, the stadium was less than half full. And about half the fans that were there were Jacksonville Jaguars fans, and the worst team in football came and held you to 6 points and beat you in your building. I don't know how you watch that and don't feel nothing but pity and shame as a Tennessee Titans fan. You should be ashamed to be a Titans fan right now in your life. Fact. Sorry if that's offensive.
Bag over the head shame.
Sorry if that's offensive. They're a joke organization. There's a couple joke organizations in professional sports in every sport. And right now in the NFL, the Titans are one of them. So you don't have to agree with everything Gentry says, but why are we water carrying for an organization that has made mistake after mistake after mistake? I don't get that. And I'm really confused by that point of like, no, Amy doesn't do anything wrong. Well, they
Well,
don't
because
speak for us. I don't understand.
yeah, Jason says some of you don't remember Miss Amy's father, and it shows. And Curtis says she's spending money more than her brother-in-law did, at least. And so, like, I think for the people that do remember Bud Adams, her father being a little more stingy, not being as willing to go out there and go all in and not spend money to upgrade facilities because he didn't have to, right? Amy did. When Tommy Smith took over for a short period of time, he took it from going downward to a nosedive and was atrocious, and hired Ken Wisenhunt off of like a Zoom interview because he thought he liked the guy, and that was it. And then it just didn't work out. So Amy, there is zero doubt that Amy, over the last 9 years of her being the controlling owner and being in that seat, has done massive things to improve the franchise. But the last 2.5 seasons have been the crumbling of the foundation, and the foundation hasn't been able to be repaired to show any signs of hope that it's going to go the other direction, because it's just gotten worse from the Todd Downing DUI, losing 7 straight, going and winning 6 games last season with Vrabel, and now you're sitting at 3-10.
Let me say this too, right? The chat got a lot of pushback on me, a Chicago Bears fan, saying that it's
and White Sox
organization, and a Chicago White Sox fan. I know what they look like. I am a fan of 2 joke organizations that are some of the worst organizations in sports.
For the record.
And that doesn't mean that you should abandon your fandom. It means you should still support your team. But you're also like, if you're in a toxic relationship, you can love the person that you're in a relationship with, or a friendship. If you've got a friend that's treating you poorly, you can be like, hey, I'd love to still be friends with you, but I also have to call you out on your behavior and where you're going wrong here. I've given Amy Adams Strunk credit over and over again for being an owner that wants to win, which is something that I do find very rare in professional sports now. I know that Amy is motivated to win. That is the most important foundation for good ownership and for a good organization. Because if the owner is motivated to produce a winner, money can solve a lot of problems often. Motivation can solve a lot of problems, more so than when you have an owner that's running it as a family business and doesn't really see the need to win as long as they turn a profit.
Right.
That's huge. But she's very, very far from perfect, especially over the last 3 years. And I think if we Titans fans and media and pundits and people that discuss this team on a daily basis, if we ignore those mistakes, all we do is feed into this like behavior of an organization that has led them down a rabbit hole towards the basement of their division.
Yeah, for sure. So, so that I wanted to address the why, the portion of the fans and people watching that don't think Gentry Estes speaks for the fans, because the job of the columnist for media is to actually represent the fans. Like, that is part of the responsibilities for that role. So Gentry continues about Amy Adams Strunk in this open letter.
I've got one more note on that regard.
Okay.
Because I do find this, and we don't have to get into the weeds of this, but this is really what I find puzzling about, and I want to know if you agree with this, Austin, because it's something that I've observed of this fan base, is when things are bad, Titans fans are, we hate this team. This is a joke. This is pathetic. I'm not even surprised anymore. This is atrocious. Boo, boo, boo. We don't even care. Apathy setting in. And then when you say Titans fans are pissed and apathy setting in, they don't care anymore, this team's a joke, it's like, whoa, whoa, whoa. Don't come after our team like that. Are you kidding me? It's almost like once you acknowledge the fact that, like, hey, I know Titans fans don't care because I see the number of people that go to games. I see the number of viewers on our shows. I see the number of people that read the stuff that I'm writing on the team.
Right.
I know that people are checked out. And then when I acknowledge the fact that people are checked out, or Gentry acknowledges the fact that people are checked out, we have to pretend like that's not true.
No, it's same thing as, like, I can make fun of my little brother, but you can't.
Right. No, I get it.
It's like, no, that's mine. I get to do that. You can't do that. That's my role. And that's exactly what the relationship is.
It is that, right? But I'm just saying, like, I'm just trying to, let's have some self-awareness about like where everything falls in line, because I don't think you need a ton more evidence to how mad Titans fans are with the team right now. Then go to one of our post-game shows and just look through the one words in the comments of like the first hour of our post-game show. And how much everybody is calling for jobs and all kinds of stuff.
Yeah, for sure. Major Keys that says that they're telling us, like some of the fans are like, Austin, we're telling you that Gentry is not speaking for the fans. But a portion of you, I'm sure, but I'm guessing and we'll keep reading because there's a lot of he makes great points. You don't have to agree with all of it, but he does speak
all right.
for.
So let's ask that question then. For those of you in the chat that are saying Gentry does not speak for the fans, what has Gentry said in that first part that you don't agree with, that doesn't speak for you?
Yeah, Amy Adams Strunk, not going to the playoffs. This is your team's blaming season. It's been blaming season now for 2 years, and we're about to hit year number 3 of blaming season. So he says the blame is now on her.
You've tried blaming the GM, didn't work. You've tried blaming the head coach, didn't work. By blaming the GM, you're also blaming the players and saying you need to fix players. You tried to get more players, didn't work. And so now the blame goes towards Amy, and it goes towards the organization as a whole, of which Amy is the controlling owner. He then follows up by, talking about how Titans fans are checking out. Titans fans are losing interest. They're not going to games. And that is on her at the end of the day. And I'm confused why any of that would be something that you'd be like, he doesn't speak for us.
All right. So ask the question you just going to ask again. Restate it a second.
What has Gentry said up to this point that we have read in the letter to Amy Adams Strunk that doesn't speak for the fan base?
That doesn't speak for you. Okay. We'll get to that because I saw some comments come in. So what about the portion that we haven't read does not speak for the fan base? Real quick, a moment's peace salon and day spa. I'll tell you this. I'll speak from experience. If you want to guarantee a victory in the holiday season, get the love of your life, the loved one in your life, or maybe your parents, your grandparents, a day of peace at a Moment's Peace Salon and Day Spa. A momentspeace.com/Christmas is where to go get a gift card. So all you got to do, get a gift card and let them choose how they want to spend it. It could be a massage. It could be a mani-pedi. It could be in the spa or the salon. They can do it all right there at momentspeace.com/Christmas to guarantee yourself a win this holiday season for that person in your life that needs that extra little piece, which we all do at this point in the tight season. So, Sam, go to the comments and let's see what people are saying on what they don't think that speaks for them with.
Searich says he, as a Titans fan, is not blaming anyone. He expected the Titans to struggle. So I guess the looking for someone to blame is not something that he is particularly doing. A lot of people are talking about how J-Rob earned his own firing and Vrabel earned his own firing. Therefore, they don't blame Amy for firing either one of them. Andre says, we are 1 year into new coach GM combo. That's why it doesn't speak for the fans.
So I've seen, Andrew says nothing. And then Justin says the organization is failing from top to bottom. So some people, I think it depends on how you felt going into the season. That is where I feel like the disconnect is of maybe the people that don't think Gentry is speaking for them said, well, and there was a good comment here. Ashley said, are the Titans not allowed a rebuild like every other franchise? And if you viewed this as a straight up rebuild, then maybe you don't think Gentry is speaking for you. But if you were like us and you
here's the problem. I don't think the Titans viewed it as a rebuild.
Right, because they didn't sell it that way.
And they didn't spend money that way. You don't spend $200 million to rebuild.
Because that's the next step of the letter. Gentry continues, look, I truly believe you to be a nice person, and that's why I believe that you've had admirable intentions trying to emulate the collaborative success of the Detroit Lions leadership under owner Sheila Ford Hamp, even as idealistic vision has proved a complete failure here in Tennessee. The Lions aren't winning because of collaboration. They're mostly winning because they've drafted better than everyone else, especially your organization. It takes players. Your Titans don't have enough good ones. That's it. That's the problem that needs to be fixed. As for the corporate culture, I mean, who cares? You're on a football team. Collaboration is a buzzword that sounds like a good idea, but I don't think anyone had the gumption to tell you how no one likes a group project. You end up wasting time being polite because if you don't, you'll come off like a malcontent. Kind of like that guy, say, Vrabel, who you fired last year. John Robinson was an alpha dog too, who evidently didn't fit the new Titans order. So they sold collaboration, positivity, new players, new smart era of football, and it flopped.
We got a lot of things here because the chat also was sounding off about our idea of a rebuild. Number one, a lot of people are saying that they knew that this was a rebuild going in, that they didn't have high expectations. I'm not going to call you a liar, but I will say when we did our preseason prediction show, I don't remember anybody under 500 with this team. It was a lot of
Zach was 7-10 and got hate.
Got dogged for it. I was 9-8 and got dogged for it.
You, me, and Easton were all 9-8. We all had them missing the playoffs, but winning 9 games.
And it was a lot of 10 wins, playoff win, 11 wins. Like, it was a very positive vibe. And again, we all had them at 9-8 as well. We thought they would be more competitive. So
I will say Andre has been very loud about this season not being good.
Sure.
Andre, I got you. You're in my brain. I know that you have been low on the entirety.
I like a comment that was earlier here from Curtis, which he said they wanted a competitive rebuild, which doesn't work, which I would kind of agree with. The Titans were trying to do a little bit of like both, not in the sense that it can't work. It can work if you do it correctly, but what they were trying to do is be competitive while also trying to build for the future, and somehow they failed at both of those things. And but I do think that that's what they were going for, was this. They were trying to be competitive. Like, you can't tell me otherwise.
Yeah, well, I mean, Ashley has a good point. I don't think anybody expected Levis to be that bad early on. And then Ryan comes in and says, we were all wrong. On paper, D-Hop Ridley looked like a top 5 duo.
Right.
And it was just discombobulated.
But this is what I'm saying. Like, we were all wrong. We all thought this team would be better. We all thought that they would like win more games. They didn't come into the year with Calvin Ridley and D-Hop and L'Jarius Sneed and Cheeto and all like $200 million spent and, a boosted offensive line and all of this stuff, a fresh coaching staff to go 3-14. They absolutely not. Like, you cannot tell me that was the plan. You cannot tell me that was your expectation. No.
Yeah.
This is a disappointment.
Yeah. I want to read one more passage. Somebody asked if I was reading the Bible. I'll read one more passage from Gentry's open letter to Amy Adams Strunk, and then we'll continue to talk more about the big picture of like what the whole point of this is. Because Gentry continues on the Tennessean. Once again, Gentry asks us, the Tennessean writes open letter to Amy Adams Strunk. But here's the thing. It ain't all been that pleasant. You can't pick off the GM one year, the coach the next, and turn the place into an island on Survivor and expect teamwork and collaboration to hold up when time gets tough again. It's human nature to plot and wonder who's voted off next. You ask Carthon, Robinson's replacement, to collaborate with Vrabel, who'd advised against hiring him as GM in the first place. Then when that didn't work out, shocker, Vrabel was gone. Carthon was back with more responsibility, but you couldn't resist another curveball. You moved Brinker to a title above Carthon. Didn't exactly scream confidence in your choice of GM, though it did, in true Titan style, perpetuate ambiguity about who is really in charge. That is not how serious NFL organizations do business. So I know that the theme of Survivor has been very popular in the Titans media room. And this has been something that has been talked about. That analogy has been talked about for basically every week, maybe since like the season began and it started off 0-3 of here we are again. It's the rotation of who is the fall guy for Amy Adams Strunk and who has her confidence as of this moment. Right.
Yeah. So that part, that is it. From Gentry right there. I don't care about the rest. I don't care about the stuff before it. I don't care about the stuff after it. I don't care about the record, the rebuild, the expectations, whatever. What he just wrote is exactly why I have an issue with Amy Adams Strunk and how she's done things. That part. The idea that there has not been a clear, concise structure of power within this organization for 3 years now. It was blame J-Rob. And when you blamed J-Rob, I don't know how many times I can say this on a live before people like jump on board with me here. When they blamed John Robinson, they fired him for the AJ trade. They fired him for Isaiah Wilson, Caleb Farley, for Treylon Burks. He lost his job for that. And I think we can all agree, all right, not mad at it, right? Sure, if that's what you felt like needed to be done, do it. J-Rob earned that in a way. You then made a commitment to Mike Vrabel. Mike is the future. Amy said as much in her press release when she fired John. It was as much of a testament to Mike being your future as it was an indictment of John not being. So you commit to Mike. You admit that it's the player's fault, not the coaching fault, and the player's a reflection of your player acquisition guy, your GM. 1 year later, at 6-11, with a new GM who Mike advised you not to hire because he didn't know him, he wanted to work with somebody he could collaborate better with. You force in Rand, you force them to collaborate. They don't always see eye to eye. 1 year in, you go 6-11, Mike's out of there. Then you bring in Rand. Then you bump somebody up above Rand. Nobody really knows who's in charge, but then you hire Brian Callahan, and now sitting at 3-10, there's this ominous feeling of who's going to get voted off next.
Yeah.
And we don't know who you're dragging along to take to the end with you as a final three GOAT. We don't know who your best ally is, but everybody wants to be Amy's number one. Everybody wants to schmooze Amy. Everybody wants to know that Amy's got all the power. She's got the immunity idol. She knows who's going home tonight, and you don't want it to be you. And that is dysfunction at its finest. It's dysfunction at its core. I know that as a Chicago Bears fan, like we mentioned, why do the Bears do stuff wrong? Well, Bears ownership, little peek behind the curtain, is a family-owned business owned by 103-year-old Virginia McCaskey. She's not involved. Her son is the acting owner that is actually like the controlling owner, and he is not involved. He's an admitted not football guy that doesn't like to make any sort of decisions. The
He
Bears
just likes the money that he gets. he just like what family he was born to.
The Bears' problem for decades now has been that they've hired non-football people like Ted Phillips or current sitting GM, CEO, or CEO and president Kevin Warren that come in and make football decisions above the general manager when they're not football guys. They're not player acquisition guys. They get to hire the head coach. Now you have a GM who doesn't like his head coach because the president CEO hired him and not the GM, and he's making draft picks that the GM doesn't agree with. And it's this level of dysfunction where you don't have harmony. They've done it 3 times in a row now where they've drafted a quarterback and fired the head coach after the rookie year of the quarterback. That doesn't line up. And that is the trajectory that Amy has had this Titans team down. This idea of 1 year after another, we're going to fall short and I'm going to fire one guy and keep the next guy. And I'm not going to actually pair it. And then I'm going to have Brinker making some decisions and my head coach making some decisions and my GM making some decisions, but they're not always all going to be aligned in their viewpoint. And that is dysfunction. And that is why somebody like Gentry or myself has to point at Amy now, because you are the person that is in charge of this. You are the one that controls who makes these decisions, and good organizations have a clear structure, a clear hierarchy of power. They know who is in control of what. They line up their GMs with their coaches, with their quarterbacks, and they fire them all in one grand fell swoop, but not the Titans.
Very well done. So I've got a response to something you said about that, of the rotating number one ally of the game that Amy Adams Strunk is playing, of her own Survivor over there. We'll get to one thing of how where I felt like this devolved and where I feel like it was an okay decision and an okay plan until one argument, so to speak. Real quick, the Bone and Joint Institute is where you should turn for all of the injury things that happen in your life. Just like in football, injuries happen in life, and you have to know who you can trust and where you can turn to make sure that you deal with that injury, you get back to health as soon as possible, and you know how to manage that injury throughout the time being. So the Bone and Joint Institute has all the experts and the resources under one roof in Franklin, Tennessee, right off of I-65 and Highway 96, and they can take care of you right next to Williams Medical Center as well, one of their partners. Book an appointment when you need them online, boneandjointtn.org.
Today's show powered, sorry, I was reading the chat. Today's show powered by BetMGM. It's the sportsbook born in Vegas. Use the bonus code ATOZ Sports when you log into BetMGM, sign up for BetMGM. You can get up to $1,500 back in the form of a bonus bet. If your first bet misses, it's the bonus code ATOZ Sports with the sportsbook born in Vegas.
All right, so Sam, you kind of went through the analogy that Gentry wrote in his open letter to Amy Adams Strunk in the Tennessean. You can't pick off the GM 1 year, the coach the next, turning the place into an island on Survivor and expect teamwork and collaboration to hold up when times get tough again. It's human nature to plot and wonder who's voted off next. So I think her continuous of picking somebody off, and this, there's been 2 years in a row of big player in the organization getting fired. John Robinson was given an extension and a raise and a job promotion to executive vice president. Then he trades AJ Brown like 6 weeks after that, and then he gets fired 9 months after that. Then you look at what happened with Mike Vrabel last year and expecting him to be the guy that Amy is rolling with Ran, and that didn't go very well. I think where it went wrong is because I think John Robinson getting fired is super justifiable, right? Like, I don't think anybody can say that that was the wrong move. It was great until it was terrible. That's the John Robinson era of drafting and acquiring players. It was really freaking good from 2016 free agent. It started with DeMarco Murray, the trade for DeMarco Murray, and the 2016 draft class through the 2019 draft class was great. Wasn't perfect. It was great. Then COVID happened and it just fell all apart because everything that happened after the AFC Championship game, you extend Ryan Tannehill, good. You get Derrick Henry under contract, good. But that free agency class started with Vic Beasley's weak ass, and then the drafting Isaiah Wilson and that whole class, it was awful, right? It was justifiable to fire John Robinson. Where I think it went wrong was the management of the relationship of Mike Vrabel.
Absolutely.
And
that's not an indictment. That's not an indictment on Rand Carthon.
No,
that's not to say the Titans shouldn't have hired Rand Carthon. But when you make a commitment to Mike and then kind of go back and don't honor your commitment to Mike by going against what Mike wants by hiring Rand, and then you fire Mike, but then kind of do stuff that Rand maybe doesn't want in the process over the last 12 months, you're constantly failing to back the person that you say you're going to back. And you are mismanaging those relationships that create harmony within the organization. So there was a comment here from Jay that says, if Amy is truly to blame, Sam, that means you fire Rand Carthon. You cannot cherry pick. I think it's the exact opposite. I will be irate if the Titans fire Rand Carthon after the season. Because if you fire Rand Carthon, you should fire Brian Callahan, Chad Brinker. You should fire Will Levis. Clean it up. But we cannot keep doing this. All right, now we're going to have a new GM with an incumbent head coach who has a quarterback that he didn't draft. So it's Rand's quarterback and not the new GM's head coach. And it's just like this weird, dysfunctional sort of thing. So you do not fire Rand Carthon. What I'm asking Amy Adams Strunk to do is to make it make sense, have direction, and have hierarchy. And if it fails, it fails. That's not on Amy at the end of the day. If Amy hires a GM and a head coach that she trusts and that the public is very high on and that we believe are going to be good GM head coach combo, and it fails, that's okay.
So
fire them and move on. And you tried, and good for you, Amy. But you have to have direction.
So here's where, because somebody had a comment and I think they maybe misunderstood what you were saying. John says, so don't fire the GM but sell the team. What are you talking
I'm
about,
not saying
Sam?
sell the
No,
team.
he never said sell a team. Like, he never said
I'm
sell.
just I'm
That's not.
asking Amy. Like
No,
again,
just firing
I
Rain
like
Carthon makes no
Amy.
sense.
I like Amy. I think in the grand scheme of like ownership, she's a better owner than most because you have the number one essential, which is a desire to win, a desire to deliver a winner to her fan base.
Yeah.
That is the most important thing. I will not come for her at all because of that, because I do believe she wants to win. But also, why is this team on a downward spiral? It's because nobody is showing face to own up for their mistakes, because Amy doesn't talk to anybody to clarify the direction that she wants the organization to go, and that the moves that they make within the organization don't seem to be aligned with any real long-term purpose.
Yeah.
And so what I'm asking for, what I think Gentry is asking for, is a little consistency here.
Yeah.
Amy, if you want us to believe what you're doing, if you want us to believe what you're saying, tell us what it is. Don't just make little moves behind the scenes and then hide. I saw somebody say she hides while the house is on fire.
Yeah, we're going to get to her talking here in a second.
And then last thing from the chat that I know, John says, I was at the Seattle game last year and I met Amy Adams Strunk. I saw how fans engaged with her and heard them singing her praises and giving her thanks in the tunnel before the game. That should answer the question. And then he says, I'm just trying to figure out how anyone expects something that took 3 years essentially to destroy to be fixed in one off season, because really that's what it's been given them. That's what it's been given the money situation last year. And John, you're making my point for me.
No, yeah, no, I think John's kind of flipped on to your side.
Okay, well, because this is why I'm so critical of Amy, because what she did with Mike Vrabel, firing Mike Vrabel after one offseason of not having money, after blaming the GM for having a horrible roster, then she mismanages the relationship with Mike and fires his ass. How are we expecting this to get better, Amy?
So
after
Sam,
one offseason.
All right, I'm going to take the Survivor analogy a little further, and you can choose to sit this one out respectfully on this. But this is where I think, and Amy's to blame for this partially, but also so is Mike Vrabel. Amy Adams Strunk is Rachel. Mike Vrabel is Andy. Andy thinks he's got something. He thinks he's got it. And he oversteps his spots and does too much and freaks out Rachel. Mike Vrabel overplayed his card and freaked out Amy. Amy knows from her father's time as a Titans owner what happens when a head coach has too much power. Jeff Fisher had too much power. He voted out Floyd Reese as the GM, and that was bad for the Titans. And Mike Vrabel reminded Amy of that. Rachel says, oh, bleep, I should probably vote out Andy. And so there you go. That is the Survivor thing coming together. So that is where Mike Vrabel misplayed his cards, and Amy, with some trauma in her back, in her past, that's where she says, okay, I've got to make sure I don't let this guy do the same thing that Jeff Fisher did with my dad. And that could be the right thing. I don't know, because in a vacuum, getting rid of Mike Vrabel to hire a offensive-minded, modern coach makes sense to me in 2024. It just hasn't gone very well.
No comment. I mean, yeah.
I was not expecting the no comment.
I don't believe. I was anti-firing Vrabel when it happened. I think that that's well documented. I think you can separate, and I do try to separate the decision from firing Vrabel to the decision of hiring Callahan. Whether or not I believe Callahan can be a good head coach, separate from the idea that I believe Vrabel is a good head coach that will have success at his next job, which may or may not be the Chicago Bears. Just saying. But my main issue with firing Vrabel at the time was not necessarily the idea that you were modernizing, getting a new offense, whatever sort of thing that you were doing. It was that it was to me, you wasted time. You wasted momentum. If you were going to fire Vrabel, you should have fired him when you fired John.
Totally.
But did you want to do that when your team was still over 500 fighting for a playoff spot for another year in a row? But then you basically blamed Mike for not fixing the disaster John created in one offseason, when now we are starting to see that maybe Mike was getting the most out of that roster because you spent $200 million on a roster of players that are actually like performing worse than the team that Mike had that was probably less talented. So that is all I ever desire or would call upon Amy Adams Strunk for, but I don't think we can understate how important it is, because it is ridiculously important in my eyes to have a very clear power structure, to pair head coach to GM to quarterback, to kind of align all of these things so that everybody is invested in the process together, without self-interest, without the need to become Amy's right hand, without the need to try and become the number one ally. It is a collective force that moves together. And I think it's important for the owner, and it starts and ends with the owner, to cultivate that culture. And I don't believe the Titans have it. And I think that, we can look at any of these moves in a vacuum and say, that was a good move. But I think when you look at the timing of them, all it has done is kick the can down the future for when the Titans are actually going to be able to build momentum as a franchise. So what is the right move for this group right now? Well, I told you, it's fire everyone or fire no one. You have to put them all in the same bucket from now on. If you actually believe in collaboration, if you actually believe in this buzzword, nicety, political culture that you've created, I can get on board with it. I just need it to be consistent. And that means that if you spend more money this next offseason and then you don't win in 2025, Rand's gone, Callahan's gone, Levis is gone, Brinker's gone, you throw out the whole damn thing and you restart. But if you're going to keep picking and choosing who your fall guy is, nobody's going to actually trust the fact that we can do this together. So that is my push. And I don't want that to be misconstrued by how passionate I am about this, but I just want Titans fans to know that this matters. This does matter. And if we sit here and just look at moves in a vacuum and say, well, thank you, Miss Amy, for caring so much about this team in this city, you're going to be blind to the fact that this is not running how good organizations run. And matter of fact, I heard Robert Griffin III say this on a podcast last week. I thought it was one of the more interesting and beautiful things I've ever heard from his experience as a player, from Washington to going to the Cleveland Browns to going to Baltimore, and how RG3 said it was, I didn't know dysfunction until I was out of it. Until he got to Baltimore, he kind of looked up and said, oh, this is how it's supposed to run?
Yeah.
That makes sense. Eric DaCosta goes to John Harbaugh, and all of this sort of is I get it now. Yeah. And he didn't have that in Washington or Cleveland, but he didn't know he was missing it. I'm telling you, Titans fans, you're missing it right now. You just don't know it because you don't know dysfunction until you're delivered out of it.
Fair. It's why when my wife and I started dating, we did football film sessions by watching Alabama games in 2014, not Tennessee Vols games, because you look at what it's supposed to be, not what Butch Jones is doing.
It's like Bears fans forever will turn on TVs and be like, well, they'll watch Patrick Mahomes or Josh Allen or whoever play football, and they're like, why is it so easy for these other teams to score touchdowns?
Throw the ball.
And it's well, that's how it's supposed to look.
Yes,
we don't know that because we don't see it, but that's actually how football's supposed to be played.
Yep. There it is. All right. So I will tell you where it started, where this whole being off schedule with the head coach, the GM, and firing one and just not having them be together. I'll tell you how it all started and my concern about why I don't know if it's going to be fixed. But real quick, Farm Bureau Health Plans is where you should turn for your health coverage needs. If you need some better health coverage for a lower rate, or maybe just stronger coverage or the right coverage for you, talk about consistency in a brand and trust and value. Farm Bureau Health Plans has served Tennesseans for 78 years across our state, and they continue to get better and adapt and evolve for us as Tennesseans. They can help you out as well. FBHP.com/ATOZ. Whatever your situation is, you deserve the right health coverage plan. And you deserve to pay a fair price for it. And that's what Farm Bureau Health Plans does. They do a fantastic job with their partnerships of finding you a fair, appropriate rate for what you're looking for. And they don't just put you in a cookie cutter or pigeonhole spot. They do it right for you, whatever you need and not what you don't need. So check them out online and book an appointment when you need them. FBHP.com/ATOZ.
Today's show powered by BetMGM. It's the sportsbook born in Vegas. When you sign up with BetMGM, use the bonus code ATOZ Sports. You can get up to $1,500 back in the form of a bonus bet if your first bet misses. With BetMGM.com, the sportsbook born in Vegas, your bet on the NFL, college football playoff, or college basketball can be risk-free up to $1,500. The bonus code ATOZ Sports at sign up. Cannot hear you.
I don't know why my microphone muted
You're
by
back.
itself.
There we go.
But you and I had a question to ask the audience like early in the show. Here we are. We have not asked it yet because we knew that we would get into some really good conversation. We will get to that. So you bring up why you think, and I agree with you, you think Amy Adams Strunk should either fire everybody or fire nobody.
Correct.
So you can make sure that when you do clean house, that you get the GM and the head coach who then work together on the quarterback, right?
Yeah.
Like that is that is ideal.
The great thing that Amy does is like a president and CEO, Burke Nihill, who does the job of president and CEO that he should do, which is worry about the business, worry about the new stadium, worry about all of those things that like are so imperative and important to the Titans organization, and not make football decisions. Imagine if Burke Nihill was like hiring the GM. That would be like, what are we doing?
Okay, so Matt says it's not the special teams coach had to go. Okay, yes, Colt Anderson will be fired. Like we're not talking about that. We're talking about
structure,
right?
Like
we're talking about the triumvirate of Brinker, Carthon, and Callahan.
The answer would be you fire everybody. Amy then does her GM search, goes through her interviews, hires the general manager of her choice, then gives that general manager full autonomy to find his head coach. Do your interviews, go through, you find a head coach. You're the head coach and GM then need to collaborate together and decide what's best for them at quarterback. Yeah. And if they believe it's Will Levis, they are making a full commitment to Will Levis. If they don't, they want to sign a free agent, knock yourself out. You want to draft the guy in the first round, knock yourself out. But you are pairing this grouping of power to at the three most critical positions within a football organization. And that will give you direction. And the other answer is you fire nobody and then you just do the same thing, except it's Rand, Callie, and Levis, and you're tying them all together for 2025. Yeah.
So I think all of that makes sense, except I think there is an option where if this new GM and new head coach come in and they ride with Will Levis in 2025, it's because they don't believe there's a better option. That they would rather punt.
I would agree. So yeah. I think that's what I'm talking about. Yeah. Like the chance that Levis is the guy in 2025 for a new regime or this regime, I don't know if it's a long-term commitment to him as much as it would be we're not in a spot to go get our guy. Yeah. I do think you get 1 year as a GM head coach combo of not getting your guy as a quarterback. You get the 1 year of see what we have with so-and-so, but I don't know if you can do it 2-3 years down the road and be like, oh, now I want to go get my quarterback.
Right. I feel like we have to continue to clear something up because when we say fire no one, we're talking about head coach, GM, and Chad Brinker, president of football. We're not talking about not firing Colt Anderson. And we're also not firing Denard Wilson, like who's done a good job.
That, by the way.
But it's
I don't know if Denard Wilson's a good defensive coordinator.
I
don't know if he's bad, but like I don't know if we've made up.
I think he's better. I think the defense has gone through a hell of a year.
I agree. I think I don't know if there's nobody to me that I'm like, that's an untouchable right there.
Look, the defense was much better before they traded away Ernest Jones. And I think and then there's other things too, right? Like you're playing like undrafted guys at cornerback who actually aren't playing terrible. Anyway, my point that I wanted to get to is where this started, how the Titans got off balance to where they are hiring a head coach, firing the GM, and hiring a head coach, and they're just off schedule, is because of how it all began. Amy Adams Strunk comes in, takes over for her brother-in-law, Tommy Smith, who was awful and didn't do anything good. He just messed up a bunch of stuff, and she had to mop up duty. And so she came in. Ken Wisenhunt was an asshole. And so I see people out there comparing that, saying Brian Callahan's going down the Ken Wisenhunt route. Nope. Ken Wisenhunt, asshole. Brian Callahan, not an asshole. So there's a big difference there. So Amy fires Ken Wisenhunt midseason. Improves and I guess makes Mike Mularkey the interim coach. Then at the end of that season, fires Rustin Webster, who was a part of the hiring with Tommy Smith of Ken Wisenhunt. So get the hell out, Rustin Webster, the GM, and Wisenhunt's already gone. Mike Mularkey did a good job, was a head coach twice before in the league, trusted him to be the guy to help her find the next GM, because she's not a football person. This is like month 10 of her being the controlling owner. She made the correct decisions to fire Wisenhunt midseason and to fire Rustin Webster, the GM, after the year. Mike Mularkey was the person to allow her to get this going the correct direction, but it is also the person that got this off schedule, like Sam is saying. And so ever since that, it's been rotating GM head coach of who gets fired and who stays.
Yeah. I going back to the Denard Wilson thing. I'm not out on Denard Wilson. I'm not in necessarily. Do I think he gets a defensive coordinator job if he's fired by the Titans? Yes, I do. But I don't know. What is the Titans defense good at right now? Point. I mean, they are, I think we all are able to agree that they are not the defense that is like number one in yards allowed. And there's a lot of reasons why they're number one in yards allowed.
But they're also victims
they're good
of
at stopping the run sometimes.
I think they're victims of the season's like devolvement.
And like, I'll say that like the reason that I'm kind of whatever is like the injuries on the defense are real and like matter, but they don't rush the passer well. They don't turn the ball over well. They don't tackle very well. They stop the run on the inside. They're one of the most penalized defenses in the league. So, you know, they're down there in points against, despite being up there in yards against. I think Denard Wilson is fine. I would love to see what Denard Wilson does with a complete defense. A healthy group that has the linebackers that he wants, that has the physical cornerbacks that he designed this defense to have. And I'm fully willing to like overlook all of it and say, yeah, like you don't have the pieces that you thought you would have at the beginning of the year. That's not your fault. You got to do what you got to do with those guys presented to you. They need better edge rusher play in general. But I'm obviously calling for structure, calling for, alignment of all of this stuff. And I don't think Denard Wilson's a guy right now that I'm like super untouchable. I saw another comment that said, if you fire Denard, promote Frank Bush immediately. This is exactly what you don't do. What the Titans should never do again is like fire one dude and promote from within. Like this needs to start the organization needs to stop doing that sort of thing. Yeah. So like I'm chapter is not closed at all on Denard Wilson. I'm open to it, but I'm also not like dead set that he's a star defensive coordinator.
All right, let's ask her a question now, because the whole point of Gentry Estes' letter to Amy Adams Strunk is say something, do something. Don't just.
I'm sorry to keep doing this, Austin. I really am. It's not that hard to get. Come on, see, Rich. You want consistency by firing people, maybe or not. Don't care. Just no in between. Like that has been my thing.
All or nothing.
You should not fire Brian Callahan and keep Denard Wilson at all. You should not. I don't think you should have your fall guys be your coordinators this year. I would not fire Nick Holtz and Denard Wilson and then keep Brian Callahan as the head coach.
Colt Anderson, different.
Colt Anderson, different. He's a clear nuisance. Like he's a clear detriment to the team. Fire him. But I don't believe in the idea of like, we want consistency. We want culture. fire the DC, bring in a new guy, but we're still Brian Callahan's. I don't believe in that. I'm just saying it's either fire nobody, which I'm on board for, or fire everybody. My point is, if you're going to fire Denard Wilson and Nick Holtz, you need to fire Callahan. You need to fire Rand. If you're going to fire Rand, you should fire Callahan and the whole coaching staff along with him. And I don't think anybody is above that level of viewpoint for me right now. And when I brought up the idea that, like, hey, you should just fire everybody, I got a lot of pushback for saying, so you wanted to fire Denard Wilson too? And my whole point was saying I'm not opposed to that if it means
I think what you're saying
out.
is like Denard Wilson has not had a fireable season, but he could get swept up in all of the things.
I don't think I'm going to finish the show.
Yeah,
so
John,
Amy Adams
I got you.
Now. No, I don't. I want them to do things entirely one way or another. Let's open our ears, man. How hard is this? Am I not being clear?
No, you're being very clear. I completely understand what you're saying. It's either don't fire anybody or fire everybody.
Correct. And either one's fine.
Yes, either one is good, but don't pick and when we're talking about firing people, we are talking about the head honchos of the departments. It is, if you want to fire Rand Carthon, then he and the people that he is in charge of have to go.
Yes.
If you want to fire Brian Callahan, then the whole staff gets caught up in that sweeping of the rug.
I don't have a preference, by the way.
It's got to be everybody.
I'm open to either one. My only wish for the organization is to do it all one way.
Yes. And look, if they do fire Rand Carthon, Chad Brinker, and Brian Callahan, and the new people interview Denard Wilson to be the defensive coordinator, cool. Sounds great.
Sure.
If he wins the job interview, then sounds great. But don't just allow him to stay.
All right. Now I'm getting trolled in the chat. American Tough, I see you, you idiot. He said Sam is saying to fire Rand and keep Brinker. I know what you're doing. I'm not taking the bait.
Oh, hilarious. All right. So here's the question. Finally, how important is it for you as Titans fans, you guys, to hear from Amy Adams Strunk? Is it very important, not that important, or makes no difference at all? How important is it for you to hear from Amy Adams Strunk? Very important, not that important, or makes no difference at all. But first, we've been talking about a lot of trash this morning here on the show, but you can help clean up the trash and the litter across our state by joining TDOT's campaign of Nobody Trashes Tennessee to help out, because we've got 88 million pieces of litter on our roadways, and we can all pitch in because TDOT's trying to do their best. TDOT is spending $23 million a year to clean up that litter, and it's a very tough job. There's a lot of litter out there. Can't do it alone. Can't just continue to throw money at the situation as well. You got to have help and buy-in from us, and we can do that. So by visiting NobodyTrashesTennessee.com, you can find out how you can be involved. I think it's the best way for your kids to get involved with a good cause, to learn a lot of good lessons at a young age, to volunteer, to help out their community, their state overall. So NobodyTrashesTennessee.com is where you get started.
Today's show powered by BetMGM. It is the sportsbook born in Vegas. I've got my favorite pick, my favorite bet for Titans Bengals this weekend.
All right.
I am on an Andre Yoshivas anytime touchdown at plus 400.
Wow.
Yeah, I know it's kind of niche, kind of out there. You'd be surprised though. He's got 6+ touchdowns, I believe 6 touchdowns this year. So he's actually been a red zone favorite for Joe Burrow. I was kind of liking the T. Higgins deal, but those odds are a little bit crazy. Chase Brown's at minus 190 to score.
I saw that.
Jamar Chase is minus 150.
Yep.
Tony Pollard and Tajay Spears are at even money and plus 145. T. Higgins plus 170. Just not a ton of value in the anytime touchdown outside of Andre Yoshivas. So
NWI is now back to plus 275. You took a week off. I think you can go back to that and be okay.
Yeah, so I do like that pick. Obviously, Joe Burrow, like I said, likes Yoshivas in the red zone. The Titans have kind of had this thing this year where they've done a decent job with number one star receivers, and as a result, given up big plays or touchdowns to number two wide receivers. I look at the Vikings game where they really did a nice job with Justin Jefferson, but got beat by Jordan Addison all day. And that seems to be the direction that they're going. So would not be surprised here if they put a lot of attention and focus into Jamar Chase. But,
I don't think that matters.
Well, I don't know if it does either. But I don't know. I like that value. That would be my favorite pick. That's probably something I'll get on this weekend.
All right. So to the chat, Sam, and I put up a poll on YouTube during our little quick betting tangent. How important is it for you to hear from Titans owner Amy Adams Strunk speak? I shout out to Buck Rising, Lucas Panzica, who did this poll on the radio yesterday on the Zone. 1, very important. 2, not that important. 3, makes no difference. Sam, are you seeing any good answers in the chat?
Yeah, well, we're pretty split, which I think is interesting. I'm seeing a lot of different answers. We see a makes no difference from Kendall, very from Cameron, very, very, very important from American Toff, makes no difference whatsoever for Ashley, no difference, not that important, very important, no difference, not important, very important, makes no difference, very, no difference to me, makes no difference, what can she say? Don't care. We got not that important, but would like a check-in, I guess. Not important. Firing everyone is real dysfunction, by the way. Very important. We've got no difference. No difference. He had to sneak it into his answer, knowing I would read it. No difference. Not that important from Ashley. No difference from Dre. Very important from Demetrius. So yeah, pretty split here, Austin. I don't think it's any surprise that I'm going to say this is very important. I don't need I don't need a constant check-in. I don't need Amy.
You're not asking for Jerry Jones doing press conference.
Yeah, I don't need Amy every month, but I think it is inexcusable, frankly, the fact that we have fired multiple key, we fired Mike Vrabel and didn't speak. How? Right? Like how do we trust? We need some. Every owner should speak before every season, after every season, and after every major firing. You should check in with your fan base. You should give them an idea and answer questions that people have about where you see things going and the direction. And no, it should not be team employee Mike Keith. It should be the media that you do not pay, that you do not control the
or employ
and control the back and forth of. So I think to me it matters. I think when you fire Mike Vrabel, right, like it's only right that the owner who's making these decisions gives an update to. And I know that not every owner does, but I think it's important. I do think it's important to show clear direction and intention and in the things that you're doing as the owner.
So I think I'm going to give my answer in a second. I do think it's important of how Amy Adams Strunk approaches her next appearance, because where I don't expect her to ever talk mid-season until she creates a new precedent of a expectation for her. So right now, if she talked like next week, it'd be like, whoa, what does that mean? Because it's so brand new and it's in a reaction to something. And I don't think she needs to be reactionary now.
I agree. I think that's fine. But
my answer is not that important. So I think the next time there is a significant decision made, she needs to open that door and then continue to take those sliver of opportunities to not make it weird to say something in the season when you need to down the road. But you can't be reactionary and do it now. So
what's the problem with a State of the Titans address? I saw somebody say it that way. But again, I'll pull on my own fandom, whatever. The worst owner in professional sports, Jerry Reinsdorf, owns the White Sox and the Bulls, doesn't spend money, hides from the media, doesn't answer any questions. Even he does a press conference at the end of every season to address what happened. When the White Sox have the worst season in the history of baseball, he says, not how we wanted it to go. Frankly, it was embarrassing. We have a plan to try and get better. Here's who's making those decisions on how we get better. I have trust in that person. He gives you an idea of whether you agree or disagree with him, why decisions are being made the way they're being made, who's making them, and, really gives you an insight into how the organization is thinking about things moving forward. I don't think we've gotten that from the Titans in a couple of years now. And I think it would be very helpful if we did. I think it would give a lot of people more clarity on, all right, who's making the call here? Who's in control of different things? When you make a firing, what are you looking for in the next guy? When you hire a new guy, how does he fit the criteria that you laid out beforehand? Answer questions. Don't just control the state by making a statement, because nobody cares about statements.
Yeah, I'm not going to put a timeline on it, but I think there is a need for her to do something early in the offseason. And early in the offseason, meaning when the dust has settled and decisions have been made on the future of the general manager, president, and head coach, whether that means keeping all three or firing 1, 2, or 3. There needs to be if she decides to keep all 3, then there needs to be something after that decision has been made to say, here's what happened last year. It was awful, unacceptable, but I believe in the long-term plan of what this group is doing, blah, 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 whatever. Then if there's a decision to fire one of those 3 or all the 3 or 2 of them, then before the hiring of the next one, it's this wasn't acceptable. This is what we're looking for, and we're going to go do it this way. Like, I think it's whatever that is. I don't know if it's January, February, something. Pre-free agency, she's going to have to do something this year.
She did not do an interview after firing Mike Vrabel. She did a scripted sit down with a team employee to control the messaging and not answer the questions that were actually on the minds of the fan base and media.
Yeah. The hostage film.
She gave you all right, here's why we fired Mike Vrabel. And I think it was a fine answer, right? My follow-up would have been, okay, Amy, that makes sense, but why after 1 year, when you made the 1 year ago today, you made this declaration about Mike? I can read your own words against you. I can read your own words to you about what you said about seeing Mike as the long-term of this organization. What changed? I would ask Amy that. What changed? But she doesn't want to face the answer to that question, so she doesn't speak. You could ask Amy about whether or not Rand and Mike got along, because there was a lot of rumors about the fact that they didn't. And instead, you left Rand up there to field all those questions. And now that Rand has hired a head coach, Rand has left his head coach hung out to dry to answer all the questions.
Yeah, basically, I agree with you. The next time she is seen, it cannot be the next version of Capital TV broadcast from the Hunger Games, which is what she did with Mike Keith, right? Like, it has to be something other than that. We can't just hear a bell ring and then the TVs all flash to Amy Adams Strunk sitting in that sterile white room saying whatever it is. It's got to be in person where we can see her, feel her.
Open forum press conference.
I honestly, because I don't think it's going to happen. I don't think she's going to have an open press conference. I don't think she will field questions from the media, because
I don't either. But that is what I'm talking about when I say she needs to speak to people. I think that is important. I think having that level of transparency is essential. Yeah. To just trust.
I'm going to update the YouTube poll, and then let's get to some good news, because I'm exhausted. With this is a good topic and a good conversation, but there's a lot of detail to it. So, how important is it for you to hear from Titans owner Amy Adams Strunk? 39%, the number one answer, makes no difference. Okay. 38%, very important. So
very torn. Very
39 split. To 38, and 23%, it's where my vote went. 23%, not that important for me.
Very torn. Very interesting.
All right, we do have some super chats. I don't want to skip out on those. Chosen 522 says, her only mistake, Amy's only mistake, was sacrificing the season to build a team around Levis, and we all knew he wasn't that good. Different QB, the record is different. I mean, you can't blame him. I don't blame them for going and doing what they did to see if Levis could do it or not. That
Yeah,
would
I mean, you can
an
have
attempt to
hindsight
maximize the opportunity is what I see that. And
I
it
mean,
was it missed.
if you didn't believe in Levis now, in hindsight, I think that can be faulty logic. Even if you didn't believe in him in the moment, I would say that's more fair. But given the draft capital that you invested in him, being a top of second round pick and the flashes that he showed, uh, I think it
And how
only
cheap he
makes
is.
and how cheap he is. I think it only makes sense to at least give him the opportunity in 2024. I don't think that is uh, a critical error.
Yeah. If you did not,
Because
and
I
then
think this team sucks with a veteran. Like, this is a bad football team.
yeah, I do think they probably win games early in the season because the veteran doesn't do the Levis things, the Levis memes, but who knows, right? Amnesia says Callahan has the potential to be a good head coach, but he has to step away from the play calling. He has flashes, but fans are in win now mode. I don't know, man. Like I looked at the play calling against the Jags and it wasn't all bad. Like Sam, you and I talked about the one NPF as the false start,
Yeah.
Calvin Ridley
Um,
down the field wide open against the linebacker.
yeah, well, for me,
Play calling.
actually, play calling is almost the last issue I have with Brian Callahan,
Totally.
or last concern I have. My issues with Brian Callahan stem or concerns, not issues necessarily, stem more from a question about player analysis, and being able to pro scout players that will fit into his scheme and execute his scheme. It is not, you know, I'm aware of the fact that as much as people would like to say, well, the right tackle is an issue, like the Titans chose that right tackle. They chose this offensive line that is horrible. They chose a lot of these wide receivers and playmakers that haven't done much. They chose the DeAndre Hopkins Calvin Ridley pairing that they couldn't figure out how to use. So they had the money to make moves. And so my question moving forward would be, how good is this coaching staff at accurately assessing which players will succeed in their system? Because the system is only one part of it. You also have to be able to continually churn players through your organization that can thrive with what you do. So that is my big question. And then the leadership aspect of it. I don't say Callahan is a bad leader, but I don't know if he's a proven leader. I don't know if he's a proven locker room coach. And I think those are the things that we still need to see him step into those roles in order to be a consistently good coach.
Yeah. Last super chat. Amnesia comes back. The Titans' problem is mental. New players are coming in to a bad football team and already have given up before the season started, giving half the effort that is needed. Nobody is stepping up to lead. I don't know about the mental part of that or the middle part of that about giving up before the season started because I don't think that's the case at all.
Yeah, I thought this team was actually very bought in at the beginning of the season. I just
Yeah.
think it spiraled very quickly. The style in which they lost games, I think, created very little buy-in after like week 2 or week 3, which you can put on coaching.
There was good fight though. I mean, I'm trying to think like the first half against the Bills, like they were winning, right? Or tied or whatever. Like they've been tied or had the lead in a lot of first halves of games up until recent.
Sure.
Like they were still fighting in Houston, right? They give up 80-yard kickoff return the first play and score allow a touchdown in the first 18 seconds of the game, came back and won. Like, so there was the last 2 games have been like the worst thought you could possibly have. But
yeah.
Anyway, all right. Let's get to some good news. Ain't that good news to send us to a weekend? I am the most excited I've ever been about good news this year. So bring your good news to the chat. Let's do it. Shout out to our friends at Wilson County Hyundai. WilsonCountyHyundai.com is where to go. Make them a part of your new car buying process. Go see them in Lebanon. WilsonCountyHyundai.com. So good news, good news. I see good news from where'd it go? Connor says good news. Only have to watch 4 more Titans games. Yep, we're getting down to the end of that. Sam, do you have good news as the good news flies in here?
I do have good news. My good news is I am going to Los Angeles next week. I will be in LA for the finale of Survivor 47 over with my friends at CBS. So I am very, 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 very excited.
Yeah.
Going to be very cool. So I'll be gone Tuesday through Thursday. You will not see me on the show. You will see less content from me. It will be a very busy few days, but
You'll be
yeah,
on Monday,
I could not.
and then
I'll be here Monday.
you'll bookend next week.
But it Final Four, and yeah, I could not be more stoked for next week and for the event in Los Angeles.
Yeah. I'm excited for you. That sounds awesome. Honestly, like I told you this yesterday, I was like, I would love to go with you. That would be fun. And I would just be there and like hide. I would take the invisibility cloak and just be seeing what would happen, because that's
The invisibility cloak.
You like that?
Yeah, that's good.
Thanks. Thank you. Appreciate it. So my good news is I'm going to Tennessee, Ohio State, baby. I totally impulse bought tickets on Sunday during the 2-minute warning, Sam. The 2-minute warning of Titans Jags. I was texting with a buddy. He was like, I got him. Here's the section. Do you want, do it? And I was like, ah. And then the 2-minute warning happened, and I'm like, screw it. Bang, hit it. So, yeah. So my wife and I are next weekend are going to Columbus, driving up Saturday to go to Tennessee, Ohio State. First college football playoff game for the Vols. The first time, the first experience of home college football playoff games. It's the first Ohio Stadium game in December in history. So I'm beyond excited about that. Like it is, I'm floored. I have lost sleep just because of the planning and the getting of cold gear and checking on the weather in Columbus, because right now the low is 17 and the high is like 29. But I'm so jazzed and pumped about going to that game. That's my good news.
It's gonna be fun. Yeah, I'm glad that you're going in with no expectations.
Yeah, I'm trying to. I'm not expecting a
It'll
Vols
be hard.
win.
It'll be hard in the moment. It'll be hard once kickoff happens, but you know.
It's been easy this week to have no expectations because I've been worrying about like logistics and making sure I don't freeze. Next week, when it's game week, that's going to be a test.
I'm worried for the Vols. I am, in a non-troll way.
I don't care.
That's great. It's going to be electric regardless.
There is no pressure. Like, what is the pressure on Tennessee?
The first time ever that there has been a college football playoff game, like it's this coming next weekend, whatever. First time ever college football playoff games are going to be played at home campuses of teams in the game, which is just so epic and sick. So regardless of like outcome of the game, that's going to be a very awesome college football environment that I think will be very cool.
Yeah, IR says Vols will lose. As of right now, I don't care. There's no pressure on Tennessee.
You will, but like
as of right now,
yeah, I'm saying like that's why I'm glad you have this mentality going in. But I also happens, you're gonna start caring a lot.
No kidding. I'm ready to get to next week. There's no pressure on the Vols. All the pressure's on Ohio State. They're the ones with national championship expectations. They're the one who has the head coach who's lost to this.
They're coming off the loss though to Michigan, so that's a Buckeyes team with nothing to lose.
Go look at the bracket. Look at all the different teams that are coming off a loss within their last 3 games.
All of them.
All of them, but Oregon, and Boise State.
Yeah.
And Arizona State. So there's like 3. Like Tennessee lost to Georgia. Georgia's won. But Texas. Then you've got Penn State just lost. Ohio State just lost. SMU just lost. Clemson lost. South Carolina. Like there's so many teams that are coming off of losses that makes it very intriguing. Very intriguing. So that is my good news. So I see some more good news in the chat I wanted to get to. Overall, Ryan, Snoop Dogg, Jelly Roll, Tom Petty released a new song last night.
What?
I do.
I'll listen to that as soon as the show ends.
Are you?
I don't listen to any of the 3 of those artists, but I'm intrigued.
You don't listen to like old school Snoop Dogg?
No.
Ever or just
ever? I mean, I've heard it, but like
when you're like probably at the Titan Stadium.
Yeah, but I'm not going to put
You're
on
not like choosing. Okay.
yeah.
Yeah. Astro, go get it, Sam. You've been amazing this season. People asking how the finale works. Congrats to Sam. You've done amazing from others. So Toph is praying for you.
Thank you, Toph. You troll.
And PBFTJ is cheering for you. So there we go. We're gonna have a look. I'm excited. I'm excited. So that'll be a good finale. But that's it for us on this Friday. Easton and I will have game day for Bengals at Titans. We'll see what happens with that. And I know Easton's got some bets he's cooking up for our pregame show. And then we'll get to next week. We'll see how we got a lot of moving pieces next week with the Titans, with Sam, with the Vols playoff game and everything. But make sure you hit that like button before you jump off the show if you haven't yet, on Facebook and YouTube. And we'll catch you guys on Sunday for Titans game day. Appreciate it as always. Have a great start to your weekend.